We're taking off today from North Canton, Ohio. We are at the Mount Mayfair Spring Crit hosted by the Summit Freewheelers. And you're going to see a lot of Summit Freewheelers in this video. They put on great races. They show up in big numbers. They participate. Love them as a race group. Love them for hosting this race. And this is the Masters from May 10th of 2025. Beautiful day. And I have two teammates with me in the peloton today, Jason and Pedro. And that's pretty much who we're racing for today. We got a Cat 1, 2, 3 race after this where we have a couple more teammates. So if we can and we can get away with it, we're going to save a little bit of legs for that race as well. But competitive by nature, there's a lot of guys here, and I'm gonna say a lot of really nice things about a lot of these guys. I race with them all the time. I group ride with them, and they're all nice. And I have my opinion about that. We all get along, and then we're competitive. We get into these races and we'll be side by side. We'll have a conversation. We'll catch up in life, but we're also going to try to beat each other. And I feel like that's how competition really should be. And that's where I'm trying to draw attention to cycling racing, to the new guys out there, to the experienced guys out there. This is a fun race. Just watch this course. We just complete lap 1 here. You can't tell that there's a little bit of a grade in the video. So the start-finish line was right at the top of one grade, and then we make this turn right here. We also go up a little bit more of an aggressive, very short grade. The overall gist of this race is relatively flat, but there's not actually a flat spot on it. You gotta like go 2 to 3% here, 2 to 3% down, take a turn. It almost makes kind of like an oval shape, about 1/6 of a mile, or not 1/6, 6/10 of a mile long. And again, as I said before, you're going to see the Summit Freewheelers. What you're also seeing is, and this is kind of confusing for all of us, is the project guys. They show up for these Ohio races. We love them for that. We go up to Buffalo and do their races. They are from the New York, Buffalo, upstate area. And they place pretty well when they come down. We like going up there to race with them as well. The funny thing about this is, you see they're in red and black. We were also in red and black. And I don't know if this caused any confusion for anybody else at certain points in time during this race for attack purposes, but it definitely threw me off at times. As far as this race goes, I'll probably go a little bit in and out of narrating, because what you're seeing right now was a lot of the race for me. I do try to stay up front quite a bit. I think we started off with over 30 riders on this. We probably brought, and you see, John takes off here. Great guy, strong racer. I've said this before in one of my other videos. If you don't do what Curtis is doing right now, we don't catch him. He stays away. You have to chase. There's a lot of guys in this field, several guys from each team really, that if you let them get away, they're gone. You're not just going to catch them because they exhaust themselves. The natural speed of the race isn't going to catch these guys. And Curtis proved that the week before this race. He took off from the start and soloed it by himself. Just never caught him. If I'm not mistaken, he actually lapped the field. You can't let that happen. And, today's goal, more than anything else, was just not to let Kurt do that again, really. But you can't let John do it either. He will if you let him. And I have a teammate here who will also do that if you let him. Really, I mean, if you let me do it, I'm gonna make my tries too. I've showed that in other videos where if I get away for free or I get away clean, yeah, I'm gonna do that too. And if you're new to racing, every experienced racer is gonna have their own sort of idea of how they like to do this. But if you're newer, your breakaways are great because it limits the amount of people that you're bringing to the finish line with you. And soloing a race, even better. A lot of guys enter Cat 5 and Cat 4, and they just know how to do this. But then they move up into Cat 3, Cat 2, Cat 1, and they don't quite do it as much anymore. And that's because those riders get better, but some guys are this strong. Everybody in this field is really good at time trialing and can sprint, and you're going to have a lot of that between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Just we have a really good group of athletes here in this general area. You don't want to try without knowing your own numbers. And if you know your numbers, stick to them. So when I say get away clean or get away free, I mean I don't want to have to put in a sprint effort to get away, because you do have to come back down off of that sprint. You gotta have to lactate, clear out. So your goal is to get away maybe 600, 700, 800 watts, and then temper it back down to your threshold. If the race is under an hour, you could probably go a little bit above threshold if your legs recover from the initial getaway. If you do get away off of a sprint, hopefully you have teammates to block for you. Right now, you know, John taking off and Curtis chasing him like this, John has a ton of teammates, but none of them got up to the front because Kurt's so strong in all reality that they didn't block. So here we are, and I'm telling you, I don't have my computer up on the screen, and you know, here goes the Summit Freewheeler, pretty much let out on John's effort. He wins this this preem lap. The dangerous thing about preems is you're looking at my rear camera right now. We got away. We weren't trying to start a breakaway, but Kurt just realized we did. And if you let a guy like Kurt get away clean on a preem like that, if I let him go there, and if I'm not mistaken, this is Javi, if he lets him go, the field probably doesn't catch Kurt. They probably don't chase him because it's just one guy. But right now the field is chasing because it's 3 of us. And, you know, if I put in an effort at this point, we might get enough of a gap. They're charging on us pretty hard. And, you know, the course, like I said, is a little bit flatter. It's a little bit tougher to stay away. And you see the guys are starting to reel us in already. But I do try. You know, I get on the front because, like I said, I'm racing for Jason. I'm racing for Pedro here. So keeping up just the speed of the race, I'm still delivering body shots, you know. I would rather be saving my legs for the next race a little bit later in the day. I'd also rather save my legs for the sprint. I'm not really a breakaway rider. I'm not really a lead the race kind of rider. So, you know, once I realize we're caught, you know, there's no real point. But I don't mind being on the front. I don't mind taking my turns. Again, the important thing is just stick to your numbers. You know, don't go up there and hold 600 watts and then get fried and then have the whole peloton blow by you. And I say that from experience. I've done that in Cat 5 races. You know, and it was only a few years ago. I'm actually pretty new to this still, really. Started racing about 6 years ago, 5 years ago maybe. You know, after the pandemic, everything opened up, races started coming back. That's about when I started racing. Only started cycling the year before. And yeah, that's really enough about me, because the race is still happening, and we hold a pretty good pace for a lot of this race. We have like I said, we have a strong group of guys, and it might not really look like what I showed you at the Oval with attack after attack after attack. More of this group is you know, really trying to get a feel for who the other racers and riders are. This race itself is pretty new. It's a replacement for Race at the Lakes. The Summit Freewheelers used to host a 4-weekend in a row crit race, and unfortunately the parks departments did some things to the trail we raced on that just didn't make it advantageous to race on it anymore. So this is year 2, and year 3 is coming up. I'm going to post the bike reg link in the comments, and I hope that this video gets a ton of attention. I hope this race gets a ton of attention. If you're watching this right now, you know, there's a big difference between seeing that there is going to be a race on bike reg, or you hear it from a friend, and watching this video. They shut down an industrial park to get a nice 0.6 mile loop of big wide roads. I mean, it's technically like a 2-corner. You can't beat 2 corners a lap, but it's kind of, I don't know. It's like I said, it's kind of got a little bit of an oval shape to it. Big wide roads. It's a real safe course. I don't want to say that it's jinxing anybody. I don't want to be the cause of, oh, this is safe, and then you crash and you're like, you said it was safe. judge your own safety based on what you're seeing. The Summit Freewheelers do a great job of going out, sweeping corners before races, making sure things are clean. The course in itself was never really dirty to start with. It's a big open space. On a windy day, there's not much blocking it. I'm sure everybody watching this video has done worse. But this was a fun course. This is a great course. And my teammate Pedro makes an appearance here. Even if you're not on the front, even if you're not attacking, to be closer to the front is more watts than being closer to the rear. So every time Pedro goes up front, you're going to notice I kind of linger back towards the rear. I don't want to spend energy I don't have to spend, and neither does Pedro. And if you watch the way I corner, I'm already spending energy I shouldn't have to spend. I'm a shit bike handler. I mean, I don't know how much swearing is allowed on YouTube, but you see how wide I take these turns, and I think I pointed this out in another video before. I don't really sit behind other riders well. I like to always give myself more of an out. I like to be ready to attack, and that just by nature keeps me from being right behind other riders. I prefer to stay to the outside. You see some of these guys, they get a little spunky, and they start an attack and then don't. I missed some cues in this race, but right now it seems like the front is just pushing a pace. And sometimes that happens when you have a nice showing from bigger teams. Maybe they don't attack, maybe they just keep the race pace up, because some people can't survive that, and sometimes that becomes really advantageous for their teammates and their riders. This is one of those races where there wasn't a lot of cat and mouse, and if you're, like I said, if you're new to racing, I've thrown out quite a bit of strategy out there already in earlier videos. I do want to kind of touch on the strategy of this video too. In a race where the pace is just kind of blistering the whole time, and the lay of the land and the turns kind of keep you in your watts, that's a really good team strategy too, is just to keep the race pace up. You don't necessarily have to attack and make everybody chase, because a lot of times everybody is using their own watts anyways. So when you're constantly turning like this, there's not much draft in a turn, and people have to recover back into a line or into a blob or a peloton or whatever to save watts. This isn't a course where it really slows anybody down necessarily, but it's also not a course where it's a free ride. So that's what made it really fun, and that's what you have a bunch of strong riders like this. At this point, you see I'm taking off again, because I don't want to be in the back for very long. I don't want to miss attacks. I want to make sure that one of us is represented up towards the front at all times. And it's actually easy in a race like this to get lackadaisical and just sit in the back and kind of talk to somebody. And I think I did that a few times. I have the video muted right now, so I can't comment on what we're saying to each other or when the words are happening. Like I said, I have it muted, but I did watch the video before I did this, and there were conversations during some of this. And for anybody who thinks that racing is just red line to red line at all times, and it's not. A race like this where the pace is just being pushed the whole time, the attacks are kind of minimal, it's actually really really easy to just be, I think I averaged 240 watts for this race. My normalized was probably a little bit higher, not real sure. I'd have to look at the numbers. Like I said, I don't have my computer data on there. This year I will. This year will be super exciting. Come join us this year. You'll get to watch the video and be like, that's where I was suffering, or that's where it was a free ride. But you don't want to spend watts you don't have to either. Just because it's easy here in the draft or it's easy here mid-pack doesn't mean that going up in the front redlining is going to do anything. You would just be pulling the whole group is what it could be. So if your option is between just pulling the group at threshold or zone 5, or just chilling in the draft in zone 2, zone 3, always pick zone 2, zone 3, obviously. But like I said, without the cat and mouse, this group does kind of stay together, and it's not really until the end or towards the end where riders start to fall off from an attack or two. This is really how a lot of the Ohio races or Northeastern Ohio races go. This is how a lot of the racing goes where I travel at too. It seems like to me like the only races where it's just sustained to attack after attack after attack is on courses where it's a little bit harder to drop riders. If you created a blistering pace at the oval where there's not a hill or a turn really, everybody's just going to draft it. Once you're up to a speed and you're in the draft, you're probably just zone 1, zone 2 watts. So there has to be cat and mouse. There doesn't have to be cat and mouse at this race, and there isn't. You just have strong riders from strong teams up at the front almost at all times, just taking their turns. And you'll see in the video too that sometimes there is a gap up at the front where somebody's just kind of off. That's more strategic. That's more beneficial to whoever's putting in the work, is almost to just kind of dangle the carrot out in front of the peloton there. That's really enough about strategy. At this point in the race, we just kind of go back and forth. So of doing exactly what I'm doing, I just kind of wash in the middle, up towards the front, up towards the back. I just kind of wash. So what I'm going to do here is, just kind of pull myself out of the video, then come back when we get towards the end, when the racing becomes something to comment on. Alright, so this was a fun part of the race for me too, is you just saw somebody take off up the left side, and I'm actually like looking around. I think I just said something to Pedro, hey, what are we doing about that? Because I couldn't tell if that was one of the Buffalo guys or if that was my teammate Jason. I think it did turn out to be my teammate Jason, so we got to sit up a little bit, and this was one of the only moments that any of us had actually done this for each other at any point in time during this race. If I had taken off, or if Pedro had taken off, I assure you, and you're going to see this in future videos too, everybody's coming. There's 4 or 5 people in this peloton, 100% for sure, were not allowed to get away and would have been chased by any CCA or Summit freewheeler, including their own. If one of their guys got away, we're absolutely chasing. Kurt, obviously the biggest threat. Soloing a race, lapping a field the week before. Yeah, I hope he watches this video and smiles ear to ear. He's strong as a, and I really appreciate that about him. I really appreciate the effort he put in this race, because part of the way this race plays out was because he puts in just such a strong effort this entire race. This is one of the periods in the race though where we didn't have to put in a strong effort. It was somebody else's turn to chase Jason. And, we were really grateful for that. And I'm going to tell you something about Jason, too. Like, being on a team with him for a year was great. It was a great experience. He's a very experienced rider. He was responsible for a lot of our success at the Oval this last year. He still has it. He's a little bit older, and he's been racing probably for as long as I've been driving. And, he has a ton of experience. And he has a ton of legs in him, and he's a proud guy, and he's competitive, and you bunch all that together. If this peloton doesn't chase Jason, he probably gets away too, and I'm glad he puts in the effort there, because this is probably really the easiest part of the race for me and Pedro, because not only did we not have to chase him. You know, like, we knew that we could just sit in. And right now, as I say that, we're not sitting in. So either we're watching somebody trying to attack or might attack, because if somebody does go to try to chase Jason down by themselves, we're going to go with them. You know, that's just how team strategy works. And so we do sit out. And that's another thing, too, is like, it's a lot to ask for your legs to not pedal for a little bit or sit at 100 watts or so, and then ask for them to hold 600, you know? So sometimes me and Pedro also both like to pop out, and a lot of riders do this. You'll see this, like, why aren't they staying in the draft? Why aren't they staying in the draft? Sometimes you want your watts to stay up a little bit. And I know I said in a previous video, lowest score is best. You want to keep your watts as low as possible within reason. You know, you don't want your heart rate to drop to 110 during a race. So because we were drafting, we sat in for so long, right now we're kind of just sitting out. While I'm giving myself a vantage point, I'm definitely, you know, using Pedro's draft. That's pretty much my cycling life is drafting Pedro. So, you know, glad he's there. But it's sometimes too, like, I respect that he needs or wants somebody to do the same thing for him. So I do try to get up towards the front. I do try to lend him a draft once in a while as well. And finally, we do have attacks going. And you see everybody gets out of saddle. Everybody starts pedaling real hard. This is why you really don't want to be stuck in the middle. And we do kind of sit to the outside, because if everybody doesn't go, we need to go around them. Everybody does go, though. I think I mentioned this before. This is one of those races where we didn't play cat and mouse, you know. If somebody goes, everybody went. And if you're in the back of the peloton, you probably only noticed a little bit of an accordion effect. But at the front, where you do spend more watts to stay up front, you did have to constantly make sure that there wasn't a gap. And it was a spike in watts. I wish I had the computer data on this race. I don't. I'm sorry. I will this year. I've already said that. Man, I really wish I took turns better. That's actually hard to watch myself and still commentary. I throw away so many watts. If I put up my Grandview races, you're probably just gonna roast me in the comments. I know I've sent the GoPro videos to some teammates, and rightfully so. They hammered me for it, you know. And that's a nice. Oh, that's another one that I'm gonna have this year. That's a nice 4-corner in Columbus. I don't have to promote that one. People are gonna be there. What I'm doing on the outside right now, I'm probably just peeking, seeing what happens. Maybe throwing a snot rocket. You know, during a race, you're still a human being, so you know, try to be considerate of those around you. If you are leaking out of those. It's a beautiful spring day, probably a ton of pollen, probably a little chilly, and my nose probably was running like crazy. So I was either doing that, I was either peeking out to see what we got going on up at the front, or I was blowing snot rockets. You know, pick whichever, it don't matter to me. But I'm back in, and you know, as I'm sitting here on Kurt's wheel, making sure Kurt doesn't get away, I'm just so thankful he didn't have teammates in this race. Because it would have only taken one teammate for them to have made it one of the most difficult races I had done in the spring. Again, like you see my turning, you see my cornering, you see that I'm not in a draft. I do this often in races, and I probably shouldn't admit this. I try to give a safe amount of space. It's almost like and I'm a truck driver by trade. So, like, we leave ourselves an out. That's ingrained in us in school. It's ingrained in us by every company we've ever worked with. I try to leave myself an out in cycling, too. I don't want to be in the crash, you know. And then, thankfully, in this race, there weren't any. Thankfully, at this event, it's been very minimal. Like I said, I feel like this is a safe course. I hope it's not proven wrong because I'm jinxing it. But I like to leave myself an out in those corners, and the safe space I give myself is always filled by a rider immediately, which makes my cornering even worse than it already is. And if you're watching these videos, 'cause I watch a lot of videos on YouTube too, these riders all seem really close, and I'm more nervous watching the video of how close I am in these pelotons than I am in real life. In real life, if you're new or you're never tried this and you want to, just know that the cameras make it look much more unsafe than it really is. And I see a lot of the elbow bumping sometimes in races. I see a lot of the elbow bumping in YouTube videos. I've been elbow bumped. I've leaned shoulders into riders. At no point in time do you feel out of control of your bike. That stuff, even if it's played up in the video for views and for likes, that stuff really isn't normally malicious, and it's not normally like a hey, let's fight after the race. It's more of, this is probably the safest way for us to take this corner or get through this peloton together. We're just going to do a little, because sometimes it is safer to put out your elbow just a little bit or your shoulder a little bit and bump into a guy than it is to accidentally wrap handlebars or something with them, you know? So when you see that stuff, don't let that discourage you. Don't let how close I look to this rider discourage you. I'd say in a peloton where everybody relatively knows what they're doing, this is safe. This is plenty of space. And then at the same time, I still have an out. If those guys inside of me crash, and I give them a little bit of room, because if they slide out, I want to be able to go right. You know, I want to be able to go underneath the slide. And I've had to do that in races. I just posted a race from Valley of the Sun where that did happen. I'm going to say that we're getting more towards like another docile little break in the race, so I'm going to cut back out, and you know, I'll be back soon as we got a little bit more action going on. I'm going to come back in for this part. You probably just saw a lap ago after I had just said, you know, it's pretty safe and we're close to each other, but it's not as close as you think. And then you probably saw me grab brake handles, and that was the first time, really, and maybe the only time in this whole race I grabbed brakes. That was me. I tried to surge up through the peloton, the hole closed. That's completely my fault. I'm going to say that, like, we're getting a little bit closer to the end of the race, and it does get a little bit spicier right here. I have a guy up towards the front, so I don't want to do the work to close these gaps. I was chasing there for a minute, but at the same time, as a teammate, you have to realize that you're only pulling people back with your effort. So I kind of do want other people to close these gaps. And I did say that during the oval races that sometimes holes open up naturally from attacks, and sometimes they're malicious by teams that want other people to do more work. Um, this was one that was opening up naturally that I was closing, that I decided to stop closing, really, unless I sailed back up, which I just did around that corner. I got to take a corner by myself, and when I take it by myself, I actually take it right, you know? But I did end up, you know, swooping back up into the field. But as a teammate who's just kind of sitting in when you have a teammate up towards the front, you don't want to close the gaps. And sometimes you have to remind yourself of that, because, like, being competitive and being in the moment, your first thought is, I don't want dropped. And it does take some race experience to finally convince yourself that it's okay to get dropped if you have a teammate up in the front. But the likelihood in a big field of you getting dropped is really low. Other people do have to close those gaps. People that don't want dropped, people that maybe don't see it that way, or people that didn't have teammates in the front. Because I had a teammate up there, I was safe. I didn't have to sit there and hold 500 watts that whole lap. And you know, at some point in time, you do have to return the favor there. At some point in time, you know, you got to let your teammate go to the back and have that same luxury. And if anybody ever really wonders why team is important in racing, or why team is important in group riding, you know, these are the reasons I'm giving you, is because if you're out there by yourself, which some of these riders are, every gap needs closed, every brake needs shut down, or you have to attempt to go with every brake, or you really have to sit in the back and hope that it stays together, and hope that you get a sprint finish, hope that somebody pulls you up towards the front the last couple laps. There's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts when you race by yourself that you don't have to worry about when you have teammates, especially active teammates. And you know, for anybody who does other non-ball sports activities, most non-ball sports have nothing to do with teams. Running, what is it to be on a team? Even triathlon, like, a team is kind of your support group, your information group, and you know, it just makes it easier to travel, makes it easier to race. But they can't benefit you in the race. Ironman's completely illegal. You can't draft, you know. I don't even think you're allowed communication devices in a lot of these triathlons. Where for us, if we wanted to wear earpieces and communicate, I think they do that in the Tour de France, you know. I am trying to stay towards the front now. Like I said, Pedro had his turn up there chasing those leaders. For me right now, and I'm still on Pedro's wheel because he's a competitor. Like, I would prefer him go towards the back, but if you start looking at my rear camera, we are kind of really in sight of the front and the back. So we've lost riders at this point. We've lost quite a few riders. And check it. We probably have 5 laps left. So with 5 to go, any move you hadn't made, you need to start making it. If your team has a strategy, it's time to start showing it. Right now, we're taking this, and it's maybe a 2%, 1 or 2%. If you were riding this course and you're just riding it for fun, so you would think it's pretty flat. But 1 and 2% at race pace, 600 watts or so, they do start to add up. And that's kind of where the speed of the race does pick up here. You know, I had to look at Strava numbers because I don't have it on my computer. I did kind of have to study this a little bit before I made this video. We were averaging upwards of 26 to start the race, and that's where I'm kind of like, we were at a blistering pace where there wasn't much attacking. And then that blistering pace kind of started fading and fading and fading, and we ended up maybe in like the high 24s there. And because of these last 5 laps, we ended up over a 25-mile-an-hour average. I'm sure to some people that doesn't sound blistering. I'm sure to some people that race quite a bit, they're not overly concerned with that. But the course is what dictates speed, you know? The watts are there, the effort's there, whatever. I said this for the South Carolina race that had that nasty climb once a lap. It really is the course that dictates speed, you know? If you follow enough people on Strava, or you do enough racing, you definitely see the 28, 29, 30-mile-an-hour races. I've never personally done the 30-mile-an-hour race. I'd love to, but I've done plenty of 28s and 29s, and I can tell you a lot of those at times are easier than this is a 25. You know, I'd say that the upside of this course aside from not being a 29 mile an hour average, is it's just fun. It was fun the whole time. There's never a dull moment, never a boring moment. And I would like for more people to come out and see this. I would like for them to be able to do this race, you know, and make it worth their while 3, 4, 5 times in the spring instead of the 1, 2, or 3, you know, because we need these local races to come back. And I can't think of a better way than to put it on YouTube and show everybody how we're out here racing and show everybody what the courses look like, and maybe a little bit of how-to. I'd rather give away all the secret sauce I have in my drawer and get people to come than to beat 5 guys. You know, like there's no fun in race numbers dwindling and races going away. There's just not. All right, so after a couple of, you know, hard efforts by some of the guys in the front, and mostly Kurt, really, just mostly Kurt at this point. After a couple of hard efforts, you see the who's who and what's left. It's mostly us at UPMC. This guy in front of me, he's been back and forth with me quite a bit. I don't remember him. I don't remember what team that was, but I'm pretty sure he was there by himself, and he does a fantastic job of staying up here with us. But other than that, you have Kurt, who's unfortunately riding by himself, but he rides like a whole team. He didn't need a teammate, really. And you have I believe still every member of Project from the Buffalo team. You have the CCA guys, you have the Summit Freewheelers, and you have us on UPMC. And we raced with UPMC last year. I've mentioned that a few times. Our team is Mahoning Valley Cycling. That's who we'll be representing this year. And there's a little bit of sitting up and going back and forth at this point in time, because everybody is kind of regathering after a couple of spicy laps coming up on what's going to be the last couple laps. Who's still here? Catch our breath. Come up with the new strategy, because as the peloton dwindles or doesn't dwindle, that affects your strategy, that affects your team strategy. I would say that the Summit Freewheelers, having the biggest showing, are probably doing the most strategizing right now. I don't ever know who they're racing for. It's fun to ask them before the race, hey, what's the game plan today, guys? I do that to most teams. And some guys just tell me the God's honest truth, and there's nothing you could do about it. Some guys, won't give you much of anything. The Summit Freewheelers, I think that they do it really smart, and they play it smart, and they answer smart, and it's normally true. It's normally the strategy, but it's also really like playing chess. It really depends on how the flow of the race goes. And that was kind of completing my thought, my sentence from earlier on why teams, and if you play non-ball sports, you do running races, you do triathlon. What's so different about cycling is the draft. The draft is the big difference. It's the big creator of chaos, because the guys up front right now are probably doing 100 or more watts than I am right now. That matters, and that's where strategy starts to come in. I tell people all the time, cycling is nothing like running. Cycling is like a cross between weightlifting and playing chess. You have to be strong to do it. You really want to work on your physical strength to be able to do it. Your endurance comes from zone 2 long rides. Your ability to ride comes from getting on a bike and going and doing it. And your ability to race and win races comes from experience and knowledge. Those things don't necessarily apply to other non-ball sports, and it's completely different in that fashion. Right now, again, I'm not implementing much strategy aside from, I could see the front, but I'm in the back. So we've dwindled. We've probably cut the field maybe in half. But as long as I can see the front, I'm good. And it's really me, Jason, and Pedro in the back right now. And I think that's because we're comfortable with how the race has gone. We're comfortable with the size of the peloton to where we don't need to be up front. We're going at a pace right now where a breakaway is super unlikely. The guys who could break away have done a ton of work, so they're probably not going to get away from these other guys. And I'm like, okay, well, I've rested in the back long enough. It's time to pull Pedro up towards the front. And luckily for me, a project rider jumps out in front of me and gives me a draft back up to whoever took off, whoever attacked there. But you know, you don't want to hang out in the back forever, especially with, if I'm not mistaken, we have 2 or 3 to go here. These riders needed caught. But that's the advantage of sitting in the back, is you have it in you to go get them. Even if they create a gap, you have it in you to go get them. And at that point in time, Pedro had done a ton of his own work. It was my turn to do something, you know? And the group does come back together. Again, there's riders that they're going to let go up the road, and there's riders that they aren't. Whether or not we were listed or not, that was too many. You know, for there to be 2 guys up the road, me to pull Pedro up there, that's 4, and then a 5th guy jumps out between us and helps us out. The remaining, let's call them 15 guys, aren't letting that go. All 15 guys probably got out of saddle and chased. Again, strategy-wise, we know that, you know. I don't have to call up Pedro on the phone right now and say, hey, the whole peloton just spent, you know, 2-3 matches there. He knows, I know, and right now in our heads we're probably thinking, we kind of have this race where we want it. What are we going to do about it, you know? And right now, there's nothing to do. There's nothing we have to do. We're sitting in a good spot. We're going at a good pace. So really, it's going to come down to when do one of us want to do the thing we do to win us a race. For me personally, you know, there's a couple ways I can win. There's a couple ways he can win. I don't want to give all those away, but you know, this was probably the best thing that could happen, was somebody to keep it strung out, you know, keep on stringing it out. And you know, I'm not gonna pull through here, because that guy that's on the front right now, he's not outpacing Kurt. I know Kurt wants me to pull through here. Sorry, Kurt. You know, my sincerest apologies. My job is to really help my teammates win this race, and I'm not going to help them win this race by, you know, spending it 2 laps to go. I know Kurt's strong. I know that Kurt's not going to just let that rider get away, and I know that the rider's not pulling away. So, and if I'm not mistaken, it's a Summit freewheeler. And this move here, where I jumped on Kurt's wheel and other people jumped on mine, put my teammate in a position to do what he's doing right now. You know, and now it's no longer my job to close the gap at all. But, you know, as you've seen in other videos, I'm going to stick up towards the front just in case something happens. What if Pedro flats out? What if Kurt catches him? You know, I need to be there. I need to be there to cover and win the race if this last lap flyer doesn't work. I'll tell you, Pedro has soloed big races. Pedro's won sprints. Pedro wins on 1 and 2 and 5 lap flyers. He wins in breakaways. So watching him do what he does here in this race, you know, this doesn't give anything away. You know, Kurt does want me to pull through again, but at this point he knows when he stops pedaling, because somebody has to pull through. He just did 2 laps, you know. But he's looking back knowing it's not going to be me. He knows that that's my teammate up there. And this is where I'm like, if Kurt had a teammate, his teammate goes with Pedro. Or his teammate comes and does the work, and then Kurt goes with Pedro. You know, and the outcome, the whole landscape of this race changes if Kurt had one teammate here to help him out. Or to beat us, really. But I just got to draft this last lap because of Pedro, so as long as I look up the road and I can't catch him, and these guys aren't going to catch him, or I'm not going to pull them up to him, I'm going to go too, you know. And this race yielded a great result for our team. You noticed we didn't do a whole lot of work, but at the end, you know, Pedro wins it. I come in second. And we were in different age groups anyway, so I technically won my age group. Pedro won his. Jason won his age group as well. This was a really good showing for UPMC. And it was really just the effort of the guys who did the work on the front the whole race. Again, that's why it's really important to have teammates. That's why it's really important to have a strategy in place, or multiple strategies. And you know, I hope that your takeaway from this video really was, that you want to come do this race. You want to come do Cat 4, Cat 5. You're a Cat 1 racer. You want to do the Cat 1. The Cat 1 is a bigger group, substantially faster, a lot more strategy. I have that video somewhere too. I don't know if I'm going to post it. But this is the Masters, and this was a lot of fun. So if you're 40 plus and you wanna try racing out for the first time or the 20th time, join us in North Canton. The link will be in the comments, and I hope to see you there.